Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to summarize for you the meeting that I have just had with the bipartisan leaders, which began at 8 o'clock and was completed 2 hours later. I began the meeting by making this statement, which I think needs to be made to the nation. America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
In 1971, President Richard Nixon called for a war on drugs, setting in motion a tough-on-crime policy agenda that continues to produce disastrous results today. Policymakers at all levels of government passed harsher sentencing laws and increased enforcement actions, especially for low-level drug offenses. Today, researchers and policymakers alike agree that the war on drugs is a failure. Every 25 seconds, someone in America is arrested for drug possession. The number of Americans arrested for possession has tripled since 1980, reaching 1.3 million arrests per year in 2015, 6 times the number of arrests for drug sales. 1/5 of the incarceration population, or 456,000 individuals, is serving time for a drug charge. Another 1.15 million people are on probation and parole for drug-related offenses. Incarcerating people for drug-related offenses has been shown to have little impact on substance misuse rates. Coming from my own personal experience of going to jail multiple times for drugs, I ended up relapsing while I was incarcerated. And one of the people I was incarcerated with provided the substances for myself and multiple other people, leading to multiple people to relapse. The National Institute on Drug Abuse and the American Psychiatric Association both define addiction as a brain disease, and the DSM-V lists criteria for classifying addiction as a mental health condition called substance use disorder. So by me calling it an illness, it isn't necessarily an illness. It is considered a brain disease and a mental health condition. I like to call it an illness because of my own personal experience of me feeling ill while I was using drugs for almost 10 years.
Good morning, and to the last questioner, I'm glad I can be the voice of youth here today. My name is Scott Cecil. I'm with Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and I wrote my question down for both doctors, whoever wants to answer it. Every person who's spoken this morning has described addiction as a disease, but I'm struggling to think of any other disease or developmental disease that we attempt to treat through incarceration. If the criminal justice system is not the best way to connect nonviolent, addicted drug abusers with treatment services, why do we insert nonviolent addicted drug users into the criminal justice system in the first place? Can't we skip that step and go right to the treatment? And wouldn't people with addictions be more likely to seek treatment out if they don't have to fear criminal penalties?
In 2001, Portugal came up with a policy that would put its people first. A new law enables citizens to possess small amounts of any illegal drug. It would no longer be a criminal offence for mostly casual users to enjoy their vice of choice. State resources could be focused on addicts. Instead of being punished for their dependency, they'd be offered help. decriminalisation has removed much of the stigma addicts felt and the fear of prosecution that stopped them from seeking help.
It's easy to them to get to us and say, okay, I have a drug problem and I need help. They don't have to lie to us. It's like, okay, I'm using and I'm not afraid to get in jail or something like that. And I think this is a big difference, you know.
90% of Portugal's anti-drugs resources are now spent on treatment and prevention, 10% on policing and punishment. In the United States, it's the opposite. Since decriminalisation, drug-induced deaths have dropped from 80 in 2001 to just 16 in 2012. Over the same period, the total number of heroin addicts halved. Portugal's experiment defied the fears of opponents and broke a global policy taboo. But for all its success, the new approach did nothing to address the supply side of the drugs trade. Though citizens weren't now being arrested for possessing drugs, the police were still chasing their dealers. Globally, criminal gangs and drugs cartels continued to dominate a drugs trade worth over $300 billion. The countries where those drugs originated continued to pay the price they've been paying for over a quarter of a century.